Hey guys, today I'm actually be showing you something a little bit different here. We're going to start out a bit different. So it's came to my attention through a lot of my YouTube followers that I'm not really sharing as much on the pre-restoration stuff. You always get to see them at the end of the chain when they're all finished and nice looking. But I'm going to try to start showing you guys some of the conditions before the restoration. Now they're not always bad. Some of them look pretty good when I get them in here, but they just don't work real well. So, it's just the idea of getting everything fixed and taken care of and that kind of stuff, which can take a while, because I do restorations, not repair. I'm a one-man shop, so anything that comes through my doors is straight through me. I don't have sub-technicians. I don't have anybody to work with me. It's pretty much just me. So it does take me a little longer. And I do say up front, guys, if any of you have a synth with me here, I have not forgot about you. They're sitting here in the lobby, and I'm working to them as fast as I can, but with quality. So please bear with me. So anyways, we're going to start with this little Moog source today. And of course you can see I've already got it opened up. And this actually belongs to Bobby. So Bobby, shout out to you here. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to work on your Moog source. And just going to kind of go over it for you. So guys, up front, I want to bring up another thing real quick, is that when you see the conditions of some of these synths, don't get mad at the owner, because a lot of these instruments were tools. It's just like into modern day, it would be like a Nord, keyboard like you see everywhere on every stage. And back then, this was the Nord. This is what people could. This is what the technology was back in this time. So a lot of these instruments were bought for a lot of money. They were used. They were on tour. They were used in studios, and they took some abuse because they were used just about probably every night. And now we put 40 years on them, and now I've got them here to restore, and the condition is not always that great. So that's my job, where I bring it back. So that's kind of where it all comes in, back to restoration. So anyways, this one here, when I got out of the box, I actually took out of the box last week, and I could hear stuff rolling around in it. And so the first thing I did, of course, was open it up. I don't want to power anything up with something loose inside the chassis, because if it's something metal and it lands on a circuit board, it could cause catastrophic failure, and you could cause your client to have to spend even more money, and it's your fault. So you might even have to take the cut for it. So if you hear something rolling around, even if you're not a technician, don't power it up till you know what it is, because it can be catastrophic. In this case, it was actually a nut for the ground wire for the bottom chassis, and it was actually laying right on the analog board, so it could have been damaging. So took that out of there, and it was still loose. I knew there's some other things loose in here. I just didn't realize that it was actually the circuit boards. So the circuit boards are they're not mounted. So that's a big problem as well. But in this case, it's not huge, because they do have standoffs. They're plastic standoffs on these things, and so they actually are not touching the metal chassis, which is good. But that's why I always open these things up usually before I power them, just to make sure everything looks good. But anyways, I'll be giving this a good cleaning. You can kind of see the pre-restoration inside here. It's kind of dusty and just typical stuff you see in a 40-year-old instrument here. One thing I don't like about the source, though, is that the way the keyboard mounts, it mounts over the circuit boards, and this tends to be a problem with these, is that you stop and think, you play this thing every night, skin flakes and sweat get down inside this thing, and they can get on your digital board. And as you can see right here, you'll see some tracings. Let me zoom in here. You can see those tracings right there, how they're starting to corrode and getting messed up. So I'll be cleaning all those tracings up and taking care of all that, and get that cleaned up. But anyways, that's just kind of a look of what a pre-restoration is inside. And of course, this keyboard, you can see it's really dusty and really dirty. You can see the dust. That's where it sits underneath the chassis, so it's not ever been wiped off. And of course, we got one note to replace. It's got a burn mark in it from a cigarette, I'm guessing. And then we've got the wood that kind of came loose as well, not uncommon on the Moog source. And so that's just kind of a look at the inside and what it is. And you can see with the membrane panel, you don't have all the pots and switches and all that kind of stuff, but you do have the optical wheel here, which turns, and that's actually using a optical cell to send light through an encoder. So it's an encoding wheel. That's what it really is. But anyways, that's what's inside this thing. You got your analog board there, which is your oscillators and your filter and your demux. It's actually part of the demux circuit here on this board because it's digitally controlled like a memory Moog. But there's your transistor ladder filter. You can kind of see it right there. It don't look quite like other synthesizers as far as the layout, but that's your transistors and filter and capacitors and all that kind of stuff for the filter. So pretty neat. But I will show you too, I've already tested the power supply voltages. The power supply is good in this one, but if we turn it on here, it's pretty sick. It has a digit out. I don't know if that's in the actual interface or computer fault, but that's like it's stuck in level 2 on the buttons here, because you got level 1, level 2 is like the record and all these upper controls. So if I just hit that, you can see it's 88, like it's actually want to record 88 steps of the sequencer. And so, you know, it's just kind of messed up, and then it just does weird stuff. So like anything I hit, it's just doing weird stuff. No sound whatsoever, so it's not producing any sound, and it just needs a good, you know, good overhaul here. But it's an early one. You can tell that also if you don't know the serial number. You can tell it by the screws missing. The later ones had screws right here. The early ones did not, and so this is an early chassis, just early chassis design. Alright, so as you guys can now see, it's back together and it's working fantastic here. I've had 12-hour burn-in on it and it's done very, very well. And of course, if you saw about the earlier part of the video, this thing was pretty rough. I spent a lot of my time in the digital board troubleshooting it, getting it repaired. So what I believe happened to this particular unit is I'd mentioned that it was missing the hardware to mount the standoffs. All the screws had been taken out, so the boards were just floating in there. I think what happened was this thing was powered up and the board slid into a screw for the foot, for the little rubber foot on the bottom, and I think it temporarily shorted something out and it killed the round chips and it killed some other stuff as well. So for those that don't know what RAM is, that stands for random access memory. And basically in a computer like what this has, or any kind of computer, it's basically, kind of think of it like a backpack for the processor. It's kind of where it can store data and just kind of pull it randomly. It doesn't really have to, you know, send it to a designated place. It's just a place where it can, you know, pull data as it needs it and send it back. And it's just kind of random, which is where it gets the random access memory term. But there's 2 of those chips in this thing, and just to show you the technological advances here from 1981 to now, just one of these chips is 4 kilobytes. So there's 2 chips in this, so that's 8 kilobytes total of random access memory that you have in this thing. In today's perspective, most computers have 8 gigabytes minimum of random access memory. That's minimum. They can go all the way up to, I've heard of 32 gigabytes of random access memory for some of the bigger computer systems. So 8 kilobytes of memory is all you got. And that was probably pretty advanced for this time, you know. So it's pretty neat. But anyways, it had a dead round chip. It had some bad latching circuitry. It had some bad decoders. So it was a mixture of faults. So I took care of all of that and just went through it and fixed everything up on the computer. And then I turned my attention to the analog board. It worked pretty well. It had a few little bugs in it, but nothing bad. And so just what I do always is just do preventive maintenance on this thing. And sorry for the truck going by out there. But anyways, I went through the circuit boards, just kind of did a good preventive maintenance on it, got everything where it needs to be. Of course, the 12-hour burn-in, make sure everything's going to hold up. Cleaned the keyboard real well, took all the keys off, cleaned those. And I did also end up replacing the membrane panel. So this is the old membrane panel here, and it actually still functioned pretty well. It didn't have any faults in this one, but I replaced it as Bobby's request, because you know these things do fail randomly. I've had them where they work great, and then all of a sudden they warm up a little bit, and they start going crazy. And but I can kind of show you how this works. So this is the old panel here. If we flip it over, you can see all the tracings in there. And what this is, it's a multi-layer. Basically, it's like a multi-layer plastic, and the tracings are made of ink. So there's 2 layers, and basically when you push a button, what it does, these work like contacts. So it contacts the top layer of tracings to the bottom layer of tracings, and it routes them over here to the designated cable. And then that, of course, goes into the computer, and the computer knows what to do with it based off the data given. And what happens a lot of times, the primary failure I see with these is actually the panel itself loses its memory. And when I say memory, I'm talking about a mechanical memory. The plastic sags, and so the button stays pushed in even when you let off. So they're always connected. And what that does, that causes one button to be latched in, and you're trying to do other things, and it keeps jumping back to the other button that's stuck. That's a real common one. The other common one I see is actually where you'll have the inks that's used to make up the tracing deteriorate, and then you're left with an open circuit. That happens too quite often. Now I don't see this as much in Moog sources, but I see this in some of the other synths that use membrane panels, and that is that these things here get brittle and they snap apart. The plastics actually deteriorate. But something else that happens too, you can see this is a example of where it plugs into the computer. It has a little socket it plugs into, and you can see the ink right there, the ink tracings. Now this one here is really not that bad, but sometimes they're worn off, or you'll unplug it and then plug it back in. It wears off that ink, making up the contact point, and you lose connection at the actual ribbon connections. So those are some of the common problems I see with those. But like I say, his worked. I just pulled it really because we put a brand new one on it, so he don't have to worry about this one failing anytime soon. And this is from Synhouse, so anybody looking for membrane panels, you can get these at Synhouse. And what I like specifically about these panels here is they actually have mechanical buttons in there. It's still a membrane panel, but it actually has a button in there, so when you actually push it, you actually hear it. You can hear the response there. So it really makes things a little bit more user friendly, because on this one you don't feel anything. You don't really know if you're hitting the button or not unless the display changes. So that's kind of a nuisance. Also, something else I did have to fix too in this one was it did actually have a bad display. So I thought it would have a bad LED driver. So I pulled the driver chip, checked it, everything looked good there. And I started just probing around on the LED segments, and it had a dead segment. So I had a new old stock segment I put in this one, so now we've got the all the data showing on the display. If I go to 8, you can see it actually displays 8. If I go to 16, you can see it's 16, 15, etc. here. So all that's fixed now, and so that was a problem as well. But just spent a lot of time just cleaning this thing up really good. As you saw in the pictures, it was really, crusty and dusty and needed good cleaning. And re-glued all the wood back in place, all the wood's back in, and then did a full calibration and burn-in. And then, of course, detailed the chassis as best I could. Now, there's the key also that was melted. That's the one I replaced. You can see I didn't even clean it, but that's the one that was melted. I believe it was this key right here. This one right here, I believe. But you can see how nice the keys look now. Now these are Matsushita keyboards, so they're not Pratt Reed, so they're a little bit, they're not quite as good feeling as the old Pratt Reeds, but they work really good and they're easy to service, which is what I do like about them. But anyways, that's the synth. Now I did clean this metal up, but you can see it's got some oxidation in there, and there's nothing I can really do for that. What Moog did, they actually laminated the aluminum chassis. And what happens is this stuff gets a little cracks in it. It just deteriorates, and it starts getting humidity and moisture underneath it, and it just kind of, you know, deteriorates the metallic content of the aluminum that you see. And of course, I got one that's even worse than this. I've got probably the worst example of one of these ever. In fact, I'll show it to you right quick. So this is one actually named. I know some of you have seen this over the years. But this is one actually named. It's called the Dog. It's written on it. That's a good example of one that was in a house in Florida, and the saltiness, the salty air, humidity got on that one, and it just corroded it all to pieces. But you can see how clean this one looks. Clean the back panel really good, so everything's really, really, really clean. And I'll show you too, this is your serial number, Bobby. It's 2044. And yeah, I'm just really happy with it. I'm happy with how it turned out. It's playing really great because it was a DOA unit, dead on arrival. And so it's a much different instrument than it was. Put all new hardware in it, so now the boards are actually mounted like they're supposed to be. And everything's back like it would have been factory here. But anyways, let me put the camera on the tripod here and I'll walk you guys through a demo. Okay, I'm just going to start by going over the sections of the synth first. I'll show you some of the presets and just kind of give you a good idea of how well this thing works. So right now we've got oscillator 1 on only. I'll go through the footages and the waveforms here so you can hear this oscillator by itself. So here's oscillator 1. We're changing the pulse width right there by just selecting the square wave and its variable pulse. So that's oscillator 1, pretty simple. The volume works. So that's oscillator 1. We'll bring up oscillator 2 now and mix it with oscillator 1. And you can hear how good those footages mix between the two oscillators. So that's your two oscillators mix. We'll turn on oscillator 1. So here's just oscillator 2 now. So you got sawtooth, triangular wave, and then we got variable pulse once again. And once again the volume works here. So there's oscillator 2 by itself. We'll combine them back together. I'll show you this interval control. So interval allows you to detune the oscillator 2 as well as bring it through a wide band of frequency. As you can hear. So that's your oscillators both working there. Your noise source works also. We'll turn the oscillators back down here. So here's just your noise source. So there's our noise. And then we've also got the filter. So I'll go and turn up one oscillator here just as a reference frequency. So we'll close the emphasis up on this filter. See it looks down. There's just the filter. up just a hair here. Bring up a frequency. So you just brought the filter up a frequency here. We got tracking off. And these are just like the switches you find on the mini Moog, which you can do 1 and 2, have them both off. So we got off, we got half track, and then we got full track, as you can see. So there's your filter. And then also we've got the contour generator. So let me set everything to 0 here in the contour generator. We'll start with just a click like I always do here. So we'll bring up the amount of contour. Here's just a click. We'll start with attack. I'm going to bring the amount of contour down just a hair so we can. So there's your attack. We got the decay. Like so. And we've also got the sustain. So if we set a little decay on that, you can hear it actually sets how far down that decay goes. Something like that. We can turn all that down. We'll leave a little bit of decay on there. We can now set a release time. So right now if I let off a note, let me set this up real quick. So if I just let off a note, so what I did there is I just opened up the release for the loudness so you could hear this release time here. So right now you hear the release for the filter go all the way to 0 as soon as I let off a key. Like so. We'll set this up. Put a little decay on it. And there it is with release time. So that's your loudness contour here for your filter contour. Now we'll go to loudness contour, turn the oscillator back on here. Open that filter back up. Now set everything to 0 here. And here's just a click. Like so. We'll start with the attack. So there's your attack. We'll turn it back to 0. So now we're back to just a click. We'll bring up decay. As you can see. And then we can also bring up the sustain. Once again, it sets how low that decay is going to go. So now you can hear it dies all the way out. It's great for some really percussive kind of stuff. bring up oscillator 2 as well. But now you can hear as soon as I let off a note, it's going to die out. So we got the release here for the loudness control as well. So we'll bring that up. Now here we got some release time after we let off a note. Like so. Also I can show you too, since we're in the contours, I'll show you that your single multi-mode works for triggering. So right now, if we hit a note, you can hear it never resets. If we hit multi, you can actually, it follows back to the ADSR. We set that to 0, like so, and here it is in single. So it does not reset. So that's how that works. So that's your loudness control, your filter, your oscillators. And now I actually just go over some modulation for you here. So we'll just reset, we'll go to preset 1 here. So you can hear the modulation program there. We'll actually start by just showing you that the oscillator only modulates, so we'll just turn off the modulation altogether. You can see I got the wheel all the way up. Here's modulation of the oscillators. So we got triangular wave and we got square wave. Then we got rate. It's got a really fast LFO on this thing. So that's your oscillators modulating. We can also modulate just the filter. I'm doing a really similar technique to how I show the mini Moog, where I actually make the filter kind of ring off the modulation of oscillator 3, but in this case we're using LFO. Let's go here and so it's kind of a cool technique there. And once again, we can combine both the filter and the oscillators. So hit oscillator on there as well. So as you can hear, that all works. I'm just resetting preset 1 there, so we're back in the preset. So that's your modulation section. We've also got the glide, so we'll turn glide all the way to 99. So anyways, that's the functions of your synthesizer. I'll also show you too that all your notes work. I'll just go down the scale of the keyboard real quick. So we got the keys there, but then we also have the octave shift. So you got a +1 octave or 0. As you can see. So that's pretty much your keyboard, your modulation. I'll show you your pitch wheel works. You've already heard it, but I'll just go through the range of it. So that's pretty much your synthesizer functions. I will show you your presets, and I'll go through and I'll show you your arpeggiators and that kind of stuff as well here. So if you already heard, you've heard preset 1. So here's preset 2. Preset 3. Really brassy kind of preset there. We got preset 4. Real smooth. Preset 5. Really classic kind of bassy kind of sound there. Preset 6. Preset 7. We got preset 8. Kind of a harpsichord sound. We got preset 9. Kind of an organ preset on this one. Now 10 is an interesting one because that's using oscillator sync. And you get a really cool sound. I will edit this preset, but I'm going to show you how it sounds just as the preset. So as you can hear, it sounds pretty good. I'm going to turn up oscillator 2 because it's actually turned down the mix. And then I'm going to slow down the rate here in a second, but I'll just let you hear this thing how it sounds here. So there it is, just turn it up with oscillator 2. Now I'm going to bring up the wheel here at the mod rate. anyways, you can hear how that sounds. That's oscillator sync. We'll go to preset 11 now. Really bassy tone. So that's 11. Here's 12. We got 13. And then we got 14. Now this is an interesting one because it actually is a noise source with a filter closed up track and the keyboard, some glide on it, and it kind of makes this kind of wind, this varying wind kind of sound. As you can hear. Then we got 15. It's kind of a percussive. And then we got 16, which is the same as 1. As you can see, it's the same preset. They actually do that so you could write over that one and not lose one of your presets. So anyways, that's the presets. We'll go back to 15 here. I'm going to go to level 2, and I'll just start by showing you the arpeggiator works. So we'll play an arpeggiation here. That last note. Sometimes you have to remember what your last note was, because that's the note you have to hit to start this arpeggiation. That's one issue. Sometimes you forget which note you hit first. So anyways, you can hear how your arpeggiator works. It's a really nice arpeggiation that you got on this thing. I'm going to go to a different preset. We'll go to preset 3. It's the brassy preset. And I'll show you the data for the recorded sequence. So this is factory data as well. So we'll go to level 2, play 2. So anyways, you can hear how that works. And we've also got play 1. So you can hear how that works. We've got sample and hold. We've got sample and hold of just the filter. And then we got auto trigger. We're just going to auto trigger the synth. If we go back here and so you can hear it's just auto trigger. Then we got external trigger on off, which is if you have something plugged into it, you can actually turn the triggering so it doesn't trigger the synthesizer. And the rest of the stuff is cassette load, verify and save, and all the stuff you'd use for the cassette interface. But that's pretty much the synth. I just want to take a minute here and go over it for you Bobby and just kind of give you a good overview of it. And once again, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to work on this thing for you, and I appreciate all you guys that watch my videos. Thanks for watching. Take care.